This day in Canadian military history live stream. I'm excited for this one, as I am for all of them, but really excited for this one because I've worked with Nathan at Project 44 on the past and ongoing. Also, because I got the new webcam finally. Woohoo! Had to follow some of that drama on Twitter where it came and said it came and it didn't come, and it was a whole thing. I got a new one. Anyway, so hopefully it looks good. It looks pretty awesome on my end, so I'm pretty excited for that. So, for this one, we're looking at Dieppe. We're not going to be looking at necessarily, a blow by blow, minute by minute. We're not going to be talking about the reasons why or all of that stuff that comes on there. You can find that other places. What we're going to be talking about today is why Nathan and with what he does with Project 44 and why Dieppe, why make something like this? How go about doing that? What does that take? How difficult is that? And of course, if you have questions about stuff as we're going, fire away and I will get them to Nathan, or I'll ask them. I might have a few myself. So we'll see. I mean, it's been available now, so hopefully you got to check it out. If not, it's linked down below so you can check it out after. It is amazing. And it's mind blowing, to be honest. I don't want more to say other than that. It's something definitely worth checking out when we finished up here. So thanks for coming on, Nathan. I really appreciate you coming on the channel today to talk about this and all the work you've done with it.
Yeah, well, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I've had so many great guests, so to be invited certainly means a lot.
Oh no, it's my pleasure. I've been wanting to get you on here for a while because obviously we work together with stuff, and I just timing never worked out right for us. So this is an important one because this is the 80th anniversary of the raid on Dieppe, and the map came out today. I mean, I got one of the earlier sneak peeks, and I've been just thinking about all the different elements since. And it's amazing. I mean, I'm going to keep saying that probably over and over today, but I mean it because I'm being honest. And I've said this on social media and just talking to people. There's nothing like this. This is one of a kind. I mean, the work you guys do is one of a kind, but this is a next level thing. And with that being said, before we kind of get into the, the whole, all the nitty gritty and everything like that, why Dieppe? Why for you was this something that you wanted to get done?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think everybody already has Dieppe in their conscious. Everybody knows about it. It's this massive battle with so much darkness to it. Mm-hmm. The big thing is I've always been interested in military history ever since I was a kid. Reading about Dieppe, and I always just had a hard time conceptualizing what did Dieppe look like. And I challenge everybody else here to think about battles that they've read about. How do you picture it in your own mind of what it looks like, what the terrain looks like? Because when I think about Dieppe when I was a kid, I always used to think about the cliffs. I used to have this vision that there's the beach of Dieppe, and then the cliffs almost formed like a C shape around the beaches. So the cliffs almost come out, but that's not actually the truth. It doesn't quite look like that. So I always had a problem visualizing those kinds of things. So really, when it came to Dieppe, I just wanted to build something that I would have wanted to see when I was 15 years old. How could I understand the battle? Because I'm a visual person. There's so many great books, and they do a great job of talking about Dieppe. But being able to visualize it, that just brings it all together.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, you and me have talked about this before, and not just Dieppe, just generally speaking. And I agree with you. It's visualization to me is also huge because I'm not a visual person. It's kind of like that's why I think we do good stuff together because it's kind of like a yin and a yang. I have trouble like visualizing it, right? Like I can read it, I can write it, but like trying to do something like that, I'd be like, I don't know what's going on here. But like I try to in my mind's eye, right? It's hard for me. Like, so that's why I've been there. I've seen the ground of this one particular. And it's been talked about the last couple of days on social media and about just how mind blowing and kind of, that glass shattering thought people have when they're standing on, beach at Dieppe itself or Puy or Pourville or wherever. It's fascinating that that's what people think. And this is what they go through. And it seems to be almost a universal experience about seeing the ground. Now, with that said, not everyone can get there, right? It's not easy. You and me were just literally talking about air travel before we started.
Yeah, that's right.
It's so expensive. It's so difficult. It's just not easy, especially now.
I haven't even been there yet.
Yeah. And that I think just speaks to your skills there with this mapping because it's just I could connect it in my head to finally have that visual resource. So with that said, how I mean, I guess I've never really asked you this before, but how do you start doing this? Like, what does that even look? I don't even know, to be honest.
Yo, that's a great question. I don't even know myself. It's just, This isn't something that just happens. This is like probably decades of just little thoughts in your head. You read about Dieppe and you struggle maybe to understand things and how that goes. Like, for instance, if I think about Merritt Bridge, always in my mind I think Merritt Bridge is right next to Dieppe, and that
Right.
people are trying to cross Merritt Bridge, and if they cross Merritt Bridge, they get into Dieppe. But that's not obviously the case. There's a huge, hill and feature right there that they can't get around. Um, so thinking about that, and then I was in the military for a number of years, and I was a geotech, and those skills, and they kind of just build up. These thoughts just pile on top of each other, and eventually you start thinking, well, maybe I could map this, right? So
Yeah, so it's just that experience in the military had, is that kind of getting into the nitty gritty here? Maybe is that kind of where it starts with different? Is that the same technology they use, or is this different? How you go about doing that?
Yeah, well, it's years of skills from the military for sure, understanding how the military process works and how that stuff comes out, and then just I don't know, just tinkering around. It's like, how does an artist make a painting? I don't really know. They start painting and they start going. That's kind of the way I did. I've been playing around with this thought of mapping out Dieppe, actually like what we're doing right now. Probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, I said, is it possible? What would it look like? I actually just looked at my diagrams I built about 9 months ago
Hmm.
of what I wanted the web map to look like, and I looked at what I ended up creating, and they're very similar. So
Okay.
I'm very happy with that. How it came about.
That's great. And this actually from one of our viewers, from Steven here. It makes a good point. Technology has come a long way. Is that helped? Right? Is that something that's kind of in the last little bit got better, or is it more of this
For
technology
sure.
has been here and you just got to be able to start to really get into it lately?
I mean, of course, obviously, we know advancements in computers. There's no way that CP Stacy could have visualized Dieppe this way, right? He has beautiful maps. They're very inspiring. I love them. Uh, Very well done. Um, so yeah, for sure, advancements in things like GIS, which is how we actually map things, and then advancements in visualization, because the visualization that we're going to show, it's all drawn through the internet on the web browser, which is a huge step for accessibility because
Hmm.
it's not a video, it's an interactive display. This kind of interactive display years ago, you would have had to only been able to access at a museum. And
Right.
everybody knows what that's like. There's a lineup, there's a kid behind you, impatiently waiting as you're trying to go through it. So you get like 30 seconds on it and then you feel obligated to move on. Well, you don't feel obligated to move on with this. You can stay
Yeah.
for as long as you want. Everybody's welcome.
Yeah, well, I mean I mean, you and me have had that discussion many times about accessibility and what that even means, in terms of what you said. Museums. I was at a museum yesterday, and had issues with kids running around being crazy. But with that, that's why what you guys do is fantastic, because, and one of the things that you mentioned in here, because I got the preview, was it could have, I don't know, better is not the right word. It could have been more, I don't know what the word is, but like more technologically advanced, further, better defined, maybe like better definition, that kind of thing. But you wanted to keep it as accessible as possible so that people could use it as a web, browser base, which to me is brilliant, because a lot of people don't think like that. And to me, that's amazing that you guys are willing to do that for your project.
For sure, yeah. There's always a balance, especially on the internet. I have to be careful I don't bias the projects we make, because I have a higher end computer, so I can run more. So I try to make sure,
Yeah.
most people can run it. So that's why when we get into, some people will see that the ships are not stylized with a ship icon and stuff like that. Sometimes there has to be a boundary of where you go for certain things, just to make sure things run, because it's not a video. A video is easy to display and they can go on YouTube, but this is, without getting too technical, there's lots of intricacies to it because it's a 3D visual product. So
Yeah, and to me that's fascinating. The 3D is, I think, the wave of the future with this kind of stuff, because that people love that, right? People love the ability to move around in a way that's kind of like real life, in that sense, but places they can't get to, which is amazing. Anyway, question from Scott here before we get into the map itself, if that's all right, and we'll show you the stuff and we can talk about that. But was it created from maps and aerial photos of the time, or I know the answer, but like,
yes,
what is that? what did that entail? If you could maybe give us a little detail about that.
For sure.
People love hearing about maps on this channel and photos especially.
Yeah. So I mean, Brad already knows the answer because he knows what kind of geotech I am. But at Project 44, everything we do is based off of almost always maps. Now for Dieppe, for sure, 100% maps. So we, that kind of ties into Brad's earlier question, how this come about. The beginning of this project really starts with maps. That's probably my biggest inspiration is definitely maps. So we're talking like defensive overprints, showing where every single bunker and machine gun that was known anyways. It doesn't cover everything. That's impossible.
Yeah.
And then we have topographic maps that cover what the general shape of the town was at the time. So where buildings were, roads, right, which helped me shape Dieppe. So we kind of deleted all the modern buildings and suburbs to try and make it look like Dieppe looked like back then.
Yeah.
And then there's, some really good maps of the actual port itself, which show some of the objectives. So yeah, everything is inspired from maps, and then it's some research to find the missing pieces. But maps, we love maps, so I can go on all day about maps. So
yeah, and as Susan says, we love maps. So
me too.
Oh yeah, I mean we're map crazy. I mean I worked in the archive with you for there a couple of days a while ago now, and we just get hung up on the maps. We're supposed to be doing the war diaries, we got hung up on the maps. I mean they're just so fascinating. It's impossible not to. I had a question now I forgot, but that's okay. Yeah, you want to move on to the map a little bit? We can show off
Yeah, for sure.
your handiwork.
All right, so this is the Project 44 Operation Jubilee web map. Now this map is different. If anybody's familiar with our other work with map.project44.ca or familiar with our story maps, this is a new way of mapping things that I just kind of had a crazy idea and I threw it to my web developer and I said, hey, can we do this cool thing where we merge an interactive timeline with a 3D web map, and the timeline will animate the web map? He's like, I don't know if that'll work, but I'm willing to try, and it works. So the web map, as I said, it's 3D. We mapped out all the unit positions, so German positions, bunkers, barbed wire, all the beaches, and then we have a timeline at the bottom, which is interactive. Has a brief description of what's happening, and then you just click through the different chapters, and it animates the map as you go along. So you can see the different ships coming in. These are actually groups of ships. We have a nice little legend here to describe what all the circles, all the different colors mean, and the different types of units. And then we track some of the unit casualties, and then we have some interactive fly-throughs. So this is all animated. All these units are coming in 15-minute increments. These are all the different groups of LCAs. Some of these are the LCPs, which are just small wooden ships.
Yeah.
Like they're like a pleasure craft, pretty much.
Pretty much.
And then you get to watch the animations as they come along. So we got commandos over here. We have the South Saskatchewan Regiment landing. And you can just flip through all of it and go back and forth any direction. And then we have these great fly-through features, which help bring you to the different parts of the map. And, these are the ones that I really like. This is, we talked about what inspired you to do the map. It was probably when I went into our software and was just able to look at the beach from this angle. And I said to myself, this is probably the closest I'll ever get to Dieppe without actually being there. Yeah. Now I can really understand, what does it look like? What does it look like for the Germans on the cliff? Like, they have a crazy advantage on the Canadians on the beach. I mean, this is scary as a former soldier to see this. I can't imagine being on this beach.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you went straight to that angle because just as an aside, the picture that's in the background here is exactly from there. I use this for all kinds of stuff, and it's the exact same thing. And it was one of those, mind, like we talked earlier, kind of mind blowing moments of wow, like you don't need to be a military genius or really to understand much to know that this is bad. Like this is a viewpoint that is
Wow.
advantageous to the defenders here.
This one's the Blue Beach.
Yeah,
That's something else.
yeah, it's. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead if you want to talk about Blue Beach at all.
No, it's this is a sort of it's easy to read about Dieppe, and sometimes you come across a personal story that's definitely get you emotional. But it's also when you just kind of read about Dieppe, a small little thing, it's easy to just kind of be distance from it. But when you're actually mapping this and you see like what they had to go through, like it kind of gets a little emotional when I was doing this, because you see that there's objectively looking at all of us here are probably going to say the same thing. This is absolutely crazy. Why would they do this?
Yeah.
Right? But obviously they thought it could be successful, so they went, and we all know the end results. So to map that out, each one of these, these are platoons. So this is about 40 soldiers. Then they come together as a company. So that's like 120 soldiers ish, but they've already taken a ton of casualties, and they're just going to continue taking casualties. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and one thing again, because I did want to talk about Blue Beach, so I'm kind of glad you did go to this right now. Is it's again, like you said, you can read about this. Sometimes it can be dry, it can be without emotion if you're just doing the tactical or relying on war diaries or what have you. It can make it difficult. But for Blue Beach, especially for those who don't know, look it up afterwards for more in depth, or use this map, because you can see the issue right here before even knowing anything. You can see the problem. You can see where they're trying to move and what they're trying to do and how impossible that's going to be. And that's why Blue Beach is so, like you said, emotional. It's such an emotional thing. It's an evocative thing for people who know about Dieppe in detail and what happens there and the photos that go along with it. It's heartbreaking. And like you said, they tried to do it, and it just, they thought they could have, but just here and seeing how you've mapped this, it just brings it to light and in a different way. Very difficult to kind of understand in a lot of ways, but this is a resource that it's mind blowing, particularly for Blue Beach, because I don't think a lot of people understand Blue Beach specifically, because I think more in the popular mind's eyes, I like to say it's red and white beach, the main beach at the end. It's not Blue Beach, isn't really entered into this. But going and be on the ground or seeing this, it's mind blowing to see this. So I mean, people are gonna, I think, be minds blown away by this, seeing this when they get to we finish up, or people who are looking at it today are gonna be having their mind blown here.
So the one thing I'll say is that the map does a good job of showing how little width there was to this entire beach. It's very narrow front, but there are limits, right? So we can see on this imagery. What gets the elevation is called the digital elevation model, and it's not perfect. If we had something called LiDAR, this would be perfect, but it's not. That's just too intensive. So this is it's probably like 10-meter accuracy, so we can see it's not perfect. And so what we don't understand, and what I implore people to look up if they don't know that much, is to understand how high this wall is. This is like a 12-foot high wall or 8-foot high wall or something. So not only is it not very wide, they have this massive obstacle that they have to get over top. And, there's some very graphic pictures from here that are not always easy to look at. So when you see this combined with some of the photos, I mean, it really puts it into perspective, how terrible Blue Beach was. All the beaches were terrible, but Blue Beach was something else.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's all terrible. I mean, like you said, it's terrible, but it's Blue Beach again. Like it doesn't, even going there today isn't the same, right? It's changed. The seawall was even taller on the day. I mean, and people have met me in person. I'm not a short guy. Going up to that wall then, when I went there in 2016 with Dave, who's watching, it's even then I was like, how do you get up this? And they're like, yeah, but it was like 10 feet tall on the day and covered in fire and barbed wire. So it's just, I think this is going to be something though that's going to help people, because then they're going to want to dig in, I think. And that's something that maybe we can talk about that analysis a bit of an aside, but kind of one of your missions with Project 44, and which I fully support, as this is like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not a tool, but it's an accompaniment to other work.
Yeah.
It's something to use to understand other stuff better. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit more and kind of your philosophy with that. And I think Blue Beach is a perfect example of this.
Right. I mean, there are some really great authors out there. I did quite a bit of reading on this before I started this project, but then I always come back to that problem I have is visualization, understanding, right?
Yeah.
So, I did a lot of research. I got David O'Keefe's One Day in August.
Yeah.
The staple CP Stacy, right?
Yeah.
This is a fantastic book on the Calgary tanks.
Yeah.
Really phenomenal. But I hope it really inspires people to read these topics and feel more confident in reading them. And then, it's a companion piece. Read the book, look at this web map at the same time. It's going to give you a whole new understanding and appreciation for what the writers are doing, right? Because people like me, like I'm a terrible reader. I just have to reread things to understand them. I'm just not that good at reading. I'm a visual person. So when I read and see it at the same time, it locks it in. And, that's what we had when we mapped Normandy. I didn't really understand the Battle of Normandy that well, but I mapped it and was reading about it at the same time. Now I know a lot about it. So.
Yeah, because I just wanted to bring that up because again, it's not something I've heard people say specifically, there's a fear that you're trying to like replace or do it completely, completely change how everything's done. And I just think about it that way, and I'm like, no, that's not true. Because I've talked to Nathan about this directly, but also doing things like this, digital stuff, and trying to change it in a way or provide another offering is the idea in and of itself. This is different. It's a companion. It goes with it. It's not meant to replace. This isn't meant to replace going to Dieppe if you need to truly see it. It's not the same. We're not saying it's the same. You're not saying it's the same. So that's kind of one of the points I did want to bring up today is your objective here of what you're trying to do. And it's again, I'm going to keep applauding you and praising you because I do that all the time anyway.
Well, I appreciate that. Another thing maybe to understand.
It's amazing that this is available.
Oh, I apologize. I think there was a lag spike there, so I thought you stopped talking for a second.
No, go ahead.
But I was going to say, like the stuff that we do, these aren't just like sort of animated PowerPoint slides. This is actual data, raw data.
Yeah.
There's coordinates tied to it, which is important because it's preserving this information, right? So this information will last for a long time, for decades. This kind of information is going to it can power research, power analysis, can power, a new book. It's going to hopefully, I really hope, and this is probably my biggest goal, that it inspires that 15-year-old kid who was like me. I was in grade 10, social studies, I hated school. Everything's boring. I don't want to do math. I want to learn about history. I want to learn about the Second World War. And then I have a class and it's, we have one class in the Second World War and I know more about the Second World War than the teacher does, right? So where does that student go? Hopefully he goes to Project 44 and he gets inspiration about the Second World War. So.
Yeah. And I mean, that's another thing I think you guys are perfect for doing is because it's all digital and it's accessible. That to me is big. Just because it's online doesn't mean it's accessible. That's a big thing I like to talk about, and you do as well.
Good
Again,
point.
I know I don't have to tell you this, but I mean, for the audience, that's one of my philosophies. Is one of yours. Is again, just because it's digital doesn't mean it's accessible. Doesn't mean it's easy to use. So that what in and of itself is great here. And again, I think it's amazing. And that kind of leads me to a question here. Sorry. I wasn't ignoring you, Stephen. I just wanted to get that out first. So he was asking about the German field of fire view. Is that part of what the map can do?
Right. So to me, field of fire view, when I think of GIS, means like mapping the actual field of view from the point of where a machine gun is to the maximum it can go, and then the arcs.
Still with us, Nathan? Sorry, it looks like we lost Nathan for a second. Sorry, I'm just reading up on the questions here. Hopefully he can get back in. Hopefully he figures it out shortly. So sorry about that, everybody. I even moved rooms. I'm sure you can see the note with the background's a little different because my Wi-Fi was being a bit spotty. So I tried to come to a different room where it's a bit stronger. All right, I'm just checking on see where Nathan went. Sorry about this, everybody. 1 second. Yeah, hold on. He's going to come back in. So sorry about that, everybody. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, capturing the data is obviously an impressive part of this. That's an amazing element to this. Being able to use it, because I know this is rigorous, because I've done it. Saw this with Nathan, especially. It's a rigorous thing. They go right to the primary docs. I can't stress that enough, because I've seen them. I've done it. I've done the work with them. It's done properly, and it's available, right? Like the thing with the whole Western Europe campaign that they've done, the other parts of other projects they've done, are amazing. It's oh yeah, he had an internet issue. He just texted me. um, It's something with the power issue. I don't know. Maybe it has to do with the carrier. I don't know. We've been having some issues up here in Canada with our internet lately. Oh, here he is.
Hey, sorry about that, everybody.
Yeah, it's all good. You were talking real good, and all of a sudden the screen went kind of brown, and it just froze. Yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, sorry, we're just talking about the data and everything that you were mentioning.
Yeah, I was going to share my screen here, and then that thought is still directly in my head.
Yeah, good. Don't lose it.
I haven't lost it.
Good, and take whatever you need to do to get back up. But
okay, I think we're good. Right. So what I was saying.
There we go.
Typically, a field of fire to me means actually like mapping out where a machine gun is, how far out it shoots, and then its angles of fire. I haven't done that, but you can certainly go and just zoom in and see, what the angles of fire were. Now, so this is kind of a bad example because I said before it's a DM that doesn't have a ton of resolution, so it's going to be a little rough. But you're going to understand what the fields of fire are here, and then same with the cliffs. Maybe if we go look at Green Beach, right? Like where was Merritt getting so much trouble from? Well, I was up on this hill shooting down on this bridge, right?
Yeah.
So these buildings wouldn't be so high, but
yeah, still aren't. Still small.
So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, well, Stephen can let us know if he has any further follow up to that. But sorry, I'm just trying to go back here. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Yeah. Oh, well, this is something else I wanted to talk about, but I want to get onto Stephen's question there. So I'm glad he brought it up. Is interactivity with a book. I think I now want to do this, right? I want to have this up while reading, Stacy or whatever.
Hey, I'm looking for the right author for sure to make a companion website, because I think having that and a book together is, it takes it to the next level. So
I think you're right. I mean, having both, this is an opportunity. I'm surprised nobody's tried to do that yet, to be honest.
Wait, what's the biggest problem with any author and trying to put products in their map? Or put a map in their book, right? It's limited by color and size. Well, go on the internet, you get rid of all that. So
true. Yeah. I mean, the whole issue of accessibility again comes up with that, because you can only do so much printed, copyrights, blah blah blah, all this different stuff, where it's much easier here. Another reason why I like doing this. But anyway, yeah. Well, this is maybe launching into another way. But again, it's not that you've done this, but I think Eric makes an excellent point here. Is configuration of the bunkers, the positions, the weapons. That's a bigger picture kind of thing. With that, again, maybe this is just kind of a question, but is that something you guys would like to do maybe in the future, adding to this, making it, more in depth? Is that something technically possible? I'm just interested to hear.
100%. I mean, I'll talk about the technicalities of it right now.
Sure.
So like I said, this is data. This isn't a PowerPoint or whatever. This is real data. So each one of these, is a point, right? Somewhere in the world on an XY axis, right?
Yep.
And you can see it, these guns are facing different directions, right? So this is from the defensive overprint. So I have to assume that the defensive overprints are super accurate, which they probably aren't 100% accurate. Some of these bunkers aren't going to be in the right direction. Some of these maybe flamethrower bunkers. I don't know. There's all sorts of different things. But let's assume that they're correct and that I have the correct angle. So I have the angle, and then all we need to know is what's the angle of fire. So how far could a bunker see? Is it 30 degrees? Is it 40 degrees? And then we talked about, we already have a digital elevation model, right? So the
Yeah.
digital elevation model is needed for that. So yeah, for sure. I've done a field of fire for Juno Beach. I'm not super happy with it. I'd want to do it a different way, but I have the data. It's definitely possible, and I might actually come back and do it. But I'd want to check. I'd want to check the bunker positions first, because I know some of these are not going to be 100% accurate, because there's defensive overprints that were done before the raid, and there's ones that were done post raid from survivors.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to jive all those up together.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an issue with this one, especially is, and maybe we could talk about that as another challenge, right? Because you have, like you said, you have the 2 times, right? You have the day of the raid, and then after, right? The
Yeah.
Canadians come back, right? Second div comes back, literally.
Well,
And
what's left of it? Yeah.
well, the new parts of it, yeah. I mean, there's very
Oh, yeah.
few.
Oh,
Veterans.
sorry. Yeah. You mean in 44?
Yeah, in September, right? September 1st.
I mean, that's a whole another emotional story right there.
Yeah.
I love. Sorry, I don't want to segue here, but I love how
Go ahead.
Prayer tells Monty to piss up a flag because we're going to Dieppe and there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, people like to maybe think Crayer's not the best. I don't really know what the opinion is. I'll let the historians do that. But that to me is one of those proud Canadian moments where he knows the significance of Dieppe. And yeah, kind of gets me a little teary thinking about it. And it was neat to map it out when we did Project. Well, we sort of call it Project 45, is from September 44 to the end of the war. We mapped out Northwest Europe, and we're mapping out second div. It's just you're mapping them like, yeah, they're going back to Dieppe and they're going in there to kick them out. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
That they did that.
Yeah, I mean, again, we can maybe talk about that at the end, the bigger stuff, but just because we're talking about Dieppe right now. But yeah, it's amazing. But what I want to say is, and this comes up too. I mean, not the level that you've. Sorry, Dave just made a really good point. I'll come back to it in a second, but not to the level you have. But I've had issues, right? But I mean, like, is this based on 44, 42 knowledge or 44 knowledge, right? Is this a picture actually from 44? But also, how much has changed? Right, there's different bunkers. The Germans add more defenses after the raid, right? So
right.
Yeah.
Most of this should be from 42 knowledge, because the defensive overprints I have are from like May 42. But you'll have one that are printed in the same month, and they'll have 2 different things on there.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. So, well, which one's accurate? I don't really know. That's why you and I discussed this before. I consider this an open project. This is not, oh, we're done. See you later. This is the final say on it. No,
Yeah.
this is going to be, this is like going to the optometrist. Okay. You go to the optometrist for an eye test, and you sit there and you flip through different lenses until everything becomes clear. We're at the eye test stage right now, and the optometrist has put the first lens in. So you can see some things, but everything's still a little blurry. And we're going to, over time, flip through different lenses until, we refine it until we get that perfect sight picture. So.
Yeah, I love that analogy because I love analogies, but that's a good one. That's a really. I'm going to steal that. Well, I think that's why this, again, singing the praises, but I'm just going to keep doing it because hey, it's my show and I can do what I want. Is what this is, right? This isn't finished, right? It's not a book. This isn't a print run. This is evolving, changing, open. It can be changed. It can be new information come to light. It's not like a book and you have to do a second edition 20 years later. That's not what this is. And I think that's why I get so excited, is because that, again, the books are great, but they have limitations. This is much easier to work with. And something I think Dave just made I had an excellent idea. Maybe this can be for the future, but recreating the parade in 44 in this format. I think that would be so cool to see as kind of like a bookend in itself, in of the story, not the product. This is what happens here, but then they come back in 44. They literally parade through the streets. That is a great idea. I mean, I know you're busy. Yeah, I'm like, get on it now, Nathan. It's not that. It's. I know how busy you are because.
I think that's a great segue into another little section.
Yeah.
To talk about this, when we talk about the format, could I recreate the parade in 44? Yeah, for sure. And that's going to talk about the fact that this is not just a web map of Dieppe. This is a framework, right? This is a framework to map out just about anything. If you want to map out El Alamein, if you want to map out the Saint Nazaire raid, if you want to map out Operation Well Hit.
Yeah.
Like, we could do all of this. You want to map out Ortona? This is a format to do this. This is actually going to be this is not going to be open source, but the code behind it is going to be open source.
Yeah.
So people can go and improve upon the actual code, like how it works, not the story, but how it works. And then I really want to hopefully inspire people to come and try and build something themselves and say, hey, I could do this too. I want to map out this battle to visualize that, because to me that's so important. If we can visualize these battles, that's half the battle, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna keep saying that, but I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
visualizing this is
Rob, no. Maybe, I don't know. If you want to bombard me, you have to follow on Project 44 on Twitter first.
yeah.
So.
Here we go. So this is you're gonna start writing them down and
Yeah,
get to work because it's not like you don't have a big project you're working on right now that I may or may not, but I'm definitely involved with. That I'm gonna go work on as soon as we log off. Because actually, I got a book that's gonna help me. Anyway, that's
perfect.
completely different aside, but there are more coming, so maybe we could finish that up. But at the end there, but yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. Is inspiration. I mean, again, I keep well, we only have our own experiences, right? I remember as a kid, I was growing up in the '90s, so this obviously didn't exist, but there was nothing really to kind of spark it. Like you said, at school, you get that one thing, that one day, and then that's it. That's all you get, right? That didn't change. I think it might still be the same. I have no idea. So with that said, I think this getting inspired is massive, because that's huge to me as someone who is a historian, right? Is getting people interested, and
For
why I
sure.
love working with you
A
guys.
long sales pitch, right?
Exactly, that's a good way to
And
put it.
that's why I think of Project 44. You know, it's a sales pitch. You know, I hope that Project 44 is sort of the gateway drug, so to
Yeah,
speak. Oh yeah, this is really cool, but I wish I knew more. Oh, there's this really cool book to read, right? Like, to me,
yeah,
they're all in the same microcosm together. So
yeah. I mean, it's perfect. And here you go. Dave is just giving us all good ideas here. Only Patreon members can make requests.
there you go.
So you guys do have that. I want to talk about that at the end, what people can get in touch and all that stuff. We'll get back to that. But some interesting thing I wanted to talk about. Maybe you've never even thought about this, but that's fine. But it is an interesting area to me, is virtual reality and all of that. Is, again, maybe this is a big picture, long down the road kind of thing, but it makes you think about this, especially with representing Dieppe in this way. It's a city. There's things to do, right? This isn't just some farmer's field somewhere. This is something with tactile things.
Yep.
Is that something you guys consider? Is there some rumblings about that behind the scenes? Anybody coming to you? Anything like that? Maybe some insights you can give us if you've thought about this. If you haven't, that's fine too. It's something I get excited about, so I wanted to ask.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my mind never stops running. So has that passed through my mind? 100%. Um, Virtual reality is interesting. I have my own VR headset. It's good. It's not for everybody though.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
so definitely think about that. One other thing I think is really interesting though is something called augmented reality, right?
Yeah,
AR.
yeah,
And AR, for anybody who doesn't know, it's kind of like VR, but you don't have to put a headset on. So you just use your phone, right? And you could potentially here. Let's do this. Imagine that you are able to visit Dieppe and you go there and you can see how significant the beach is.
hmm
But you could go on this web map and you could get this picture, right? But wouldn't be perfect. But if you could bring out your phone and scan the beach and literally have those icons pop up on your phone as
yeah,
you look at the beach through your camera. That to me would be super inspiring. If you could sit anywhere in Dieppe and just turn on your phone and say, what did it look like at this time? And the units start popping up. That to me would be extremely powerful for wherever you go. So that's probably what inspires me and ignites my thoughts the most is where could I go in Europe and how can I merge those two things together to really understand? Because if you're standing on that ground and you can understand what's happening, it's super powerful. And if I could just, for one sec, just when I was in Normandy in 2019, I went to Juno Beach and it's very powerful. But I didn't have maybe a personal story to truly understand, where was this soldier or this exact unit going up on the beach. We just didn't have enough time. It was the 75th anniversary, so getting on the beach was already difficult enough with all the security. But I did. If anybody's ever heard of George Pollard and read the George Pollard story map,
Yeah.
I made that. And our team was able to figure out where George Pollard was. And when Drew, our co-founder and my colleague, him and I went to Normandy in 2019, we were able to actually walk that one section where George Pollard was and where he was captured. And, he was eventually executed, the Abbé des Ardennes. But that was super powerful. So to me, when I think about AR, I want to have a powerful experience where somebody can just have that, go to that spot and just truly understand what was happening.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, that's a bit of a side, but the Pollard work is amazing. I mean, his story is tragic, connected to the Abbé Ardennes and all of that. But yeah, I mean, again, it's the same thing. I've had that same experience getting to go to these places, but I can only imagine of the addition that AR brings. I mean, yeah, I'm a little skeptical about VR myself. I think AR is the way to go. But again, I could be old and maybe that's not the way people are thinking about it. But
My kids love it, so you got to go where the kids go. So
exactly. I mean, it's the filters and everything you can do on TikTok and Snapchat and that. It's all crazy, and that's AR. It is AR in a sense. But it's fascinating. And to hold on, sorry, I'm having a second here. Is another thing is the historian in me is connecting photos, videos, or say war diaries, reports to the spot. To me, that would just be
yes,
the ultimate, right?
that's a good thing. It's something I'm definitely interested in. I probably just forgot about along the way, and you had so much other work. So,
Yeah.
But I'm huge on that as well because when you have a picture, it's obviously, especially on a screen, it's two-dimensional, right?
Yeah.
But when you geolocate it, you start getting that third dimension, right? Because you know where it was. And
Yeah.
then if you start putting a time on it, you got a fourth dimension of the time, right? And that provides context to me. I think about, when you and I worked on the Major Curry story map,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I'd heard about Curry, I heard about Saint Lambert Soudifs before, but see all these cool pictures. Oh, cool. He he stops some things. It's not until you actually see it and you can start geolocating those pictures that's where it gets powerful. Oh yeah, like he was literally the cork in the bottle. You know, all this stuff was coming through there. So
Yeah, I mean, that one's coming to mind too, obviously, because it's the anniversary of that as well, literally right
yeah,
now. So that's that, but that's again with your other tools that have been created. I mean, you can just literally see this developing. I mean, we did it in that story map format that you like to call it, which I think is a great way of calling it because that's what it is. It moves you around and it shows you places, and with the writing I did and all the other stuff, it's fantastic. But also, you did literally the big picture with
yeah.
the actual Normandy map and the West one, and then you did that GIF that's blown up more than once of showing that, and then people steal it and don't credit you, which pisses me off.
Yeah, that was Drew. Drew made that. He did a great job and
Yeah.
really went crazy. I don't think anybody was expecting that, but that's another story.
But anyway, so that's what I think is the potential here. And again, Dave is on fire with his points today. But if you can chase Pokemon around the world, you can do soldiers on Juno.
Yeah, preach to the choir on that. I
That's a
100%
great
believe
idea.
that.
Yeah, I mean that's just a good way to kind of conceptualize it in that sense. And again, I like your philosophy the same as mine is getting younger people involved and interested. And how do you have to do that? I mean, yeah, they'll run around chasing fake Pokemon. Why aren't we doing this to get them interested in this? Doing it the old ways isn't working. That's again a bit of a tirade for me, but it's not working the same anymore. It doesn't work.
Another thing, sort of philosophy that we have here at Project 44 is that things we always sort of focus on things. There's a hierarchy. I'm sure you'd agree with me. There's a hierarchy when it comes to Second World War commemoration. Dieppe's probably at the top, followed by Juno, right? And it's like Normandy, veterans, and then Italian veterans. You know what I mean? Like there's a hierarchy. Should there be a hierarchy? Probably not, right? But there is a hierarchy. So what happens is all that other stuff kind of gets forgotten about. In Project 44, you can start talking about things that people don't normally talk about. Like I didn't realize how far the Queen's Own Cameron Highlanders, went and actually penetrated in on their sector, how far they went, and that they're trying to intercept German reinforcements. I didn't know that. I mean, it's not that the authors haven't talked about that. The authors definitely talk about that. It's in the books, but I just don't. I don't hold on to that information the same way. I didn't understand the Merritt Bridge and what was happening there to the same extent. So
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The one thing I wanted to talk about specifically, why I think this is fascinating, and because it's changed so much, literally on the ground, is the casino. Right, that was where a pool is now. It doesn't get you the same sense. You get that from this because there's so many stories connected to that casino. Right, that's how they advanced through. That's how some of them were able to get off of the promenade there and move forward. They literally had to go through the casino to do
yeah,
that.
it's probably the most cover it had on that entire beach.
Yeah, I have some of the only part there, and you can see the difference right there. You're toggling it right now, which is fascinating because you can't do that in any other format. I mean, it's hard to visualize it when you're there because it's just a pool. You don't get that. But then it's very different. I mean, it's central to so many stories. So sorry, I'm just reading some comments here. So yeah, I'm not too worried about that. I mean, maybe you can speak to that. Eric says he's more concerned about the gamification of this. Is that something that's kind of come up? I'm not, because I know what you guys do. But I can understand that. I can understand what that means.
Right, I can understand the concern, but my
Yeah,
concern is making people understand. And if people can understand, then that means they remember. Um, you're
yeah,
going to have a hard time, except finding the most diehard youth to go and read history books. It's just a fact. You're not going to read it. It's not part of their genre. Mark Milner. I remember watching one of his speeches. He talks about how people are more and more removed generation-wise. It's not their grandfather that served as their great-grandfather.
yep.
As we get further away, there's less attachment. There's less reason for them to understand about the Second World War. It's
Okay.
just a thing that happened in the past. If you can visualize and tie something to that, people are going to go towards that. They say the medium is the message. This is the medium that people understand. It needs to be on the internet. It needs to be visual.
Yep.
Um, so, yeah, I
Yep.
certainly understand the gamification of things, but
Well, and I think this is, I think because I know Eric a little bit, and I think this is what he meant. Someone else doing it,
okay.
I get that, but there's only so much you can do, right? You can't.
I mean, if it inspires somebody else to, I know people are probably opposed. Some people may be opposed to video games, but I'm not. If people make video games from this, it inspires them. That inspires them to get work. That inspires them to do something that interests them. And uh, you know, Call of Duty is a little silly, but games are a fact of life. So I don't think we can get away from that.
Well, it's
I appreciate your concern.
yeah, no, I get it too. I mean, yeah, other people, but again, like I've had that with my own stuff. It's like you can only do so much, right? If you want to be accessible, you have to worry about that. It is what it is. But it's interesting because I think, and Woody from World War II TV tells this story, right? Because he's a tour guide in Normandy. He says like people like my generation, right, remember Saving Private Ryan, Band of Brothers. He's saying there's younger people coming now who are like, I know that spot from a video game, like a real life spot on a battlefield from a video game. I
Yeah.
don't think that that's a bad thing that they're learning about it and they know it. I think as long as it's being talked about, that's good. Um, it's just, I think that's the benefit to this. Anyway, that's just my thought. So a question I want to do is kind of, we're wrapping up here a little bit, is what can people do to help Project 44? Is there different things that they can do to help you guys continue to do this stuff?
The biggest thing you can do is just tag along with us. We're on social media. Keep in touch with what we're doing. You're on this day, came out to history and Project 4. We often banter back and forth, and resharing. You've helped us out a lot. You actually do a lot of our social media, right? So we really appreciate that. You help us out. You're part of the
I
team.
do? What? No.
Yeah. Um, so honestly, the best thing you can ever do is just follow along and stick with us as we go through, because uh, there are some good things coming along. There's some grand plans that we have, and these kinds of things are going to be beneficial to commemoration,
Mhm.
to remembrance. They're going to be beneficial to people like Brad and his work, to help him do research. They're going to help out a lot of things in I don't want to talk about it yet, but if you follow along on our social media, Twitter, Facebook, any of that, uh, you'll find out when we start talking about this stuff.
Okay, because that was going to be my next question. If you could tell us maybe, because again, I know, but maybe a little bit of, because people are watching live, a little bit of taste of what might be coming, if that's possible.
Sure. Yeah, I'll give a little thought process of what we want to do. What is sort of the vision?
Yeah.
Um, Really, the vision is to grow Project 44 and not to be in the space where Drew and I and other members of our team are out there mapping and finding everything, but growing to a place where we can build a community that helps to map the Second World War. Now, I want
Okay.
to add some caveats to that because
Yep.
people are going to, be concerned that people are going to start mapping things terribly or whatnot. It would be a very controlled community. There'd be training. Now, the inspiration I would give you, and I don't want everybody to screech, okay? So just calm down. But think of the Wikipedia model,
Yep.
right? So people are
Mhm.
concerned about the Wikipedia model. Wikipedia model is very accessible. It's not always right. It's not always correct, but it's open source. There is a hierarchy to it. So imagine that, but a smaller scale, more tightly controlled, where there's people working together to map out things. Think about like Operation Jubilee, which we haven't mapped out.
Yeah.
The African front, the Pacific campaign, all those things that we can map out. It'd be impossible to do with just a bunch of people, but it's possible to do as a crowdsourced approach where we work together, where we cite resources. We say, this is the war diary. This is where this thing was. That's what we want to do because that's going to inspire research and accessibility and get more people across the world involved in Project 44.
Yeah, I mean that sounds pretty motivational to me. I mean, because again, I know how you guys work, but I get those concerns. Things like, yeah, the Wikipedia model, I get it. But well, again, I worked with you on something similar, not quite to the level of mapping, but we were doing the transcribing stuff. It's all
Yeah.
controlled. It's all double checked. It's all of that. It's not just you do whatever you feel kind of
Yeah,
thing.
I completely forgot about from the page, and that is a great example. There's somebody who goes through and edits, and then
Yeah,
there's somebody who checks it afterwards, and that's really where the model would be. And there would probably be, an overall hierarchy. Like maybe somebody would be in command of,
yeah,
so to speak, of Second British Army, and they control all the edits that happen. So there's like a
yep,
committee that reviews it. And when somebody comes in there and tries to map out some secret unit that was sent to kill Hitler that never happened, well, that just doesn't show up on the map, right?
yeah, exactly.
Because we're all about factual, data points. It's very important to what we do.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the again because that's what I helped you guys with is that transcribing and getting all that, and it was great because it has that check in it. It's not just whatever, whatever. That's not how it goes. So again, if people have that concern, it's not that. It's not just completely open and do whatever you want because it's never been that. So yes, so that's great. Again, there's some big ones coming, so everyone make sure to. Follow you guys on social media. I linked all your stuff down below. The web page, the page for this because it's live now, and all the other stuff. Because you guys have got everything. Okay, I can forget what you guys have. You have maybe we can run the list real quick because you've done Iwo Jima, right?
Yeah, Iwo Jima is something I did a long time ago, and we just
Yeah,
kind of started Project 44, so I brought it on board. I'm probably going to redo it, but we start off mapping Normandy. Then
yeah,
we did Northwest European campaign. Then we mapped out the Italian campaign.
yeah,
We've worked with defining moments to make some cool stories about Mona Parson, Philip Pacello, and Charles Bice.
yeah,
Tons of story maps that you and I have worked on to help, which were fantastic. Especially Italy always gets forgotten about.
yeah,
Now me as the guy who mapped it, the story maps really helped me understand what the battle was about. Um, so we've done a lot of that, and up and coming, we just launched Dieppe. Just before Dieppe, we launched Kiska. So
yeah.
Drew, my colleague, has been working on Kiska with you.
Cool.
Um, Kiska is a battle that sometimes people, look down upon because there wasn't a big battle, but it's still very interesting. The soldiers going to Kiska Island didn't know that they weren't going to have a massive fight. They were expecting, Iwo Jima in the Arctic, um,
Yeah,
or Guadalcanal or whatever. But coming up, we have our Forgotten Fronts project, which you've been helping out with a ton. Mike Bechtold is actually helping out write a piece in the BCATP, and then we actually have Megan Hamilton coming on board to help us out with another piece, which I'm really excited about.
Perfect.
So BCATP, home front, like we're talking about RCF operations in Canada and Royal Canadian Navy operations on the coast. It's going to be really cool. And the best part is you don't have to leave Canada to check these places out. So
yeah, that's it. So that's why I love this stuff, because getting overseas, like we already talked about, is difficult. So it's a fantastic thing. So thank you again for doing this. I mean, I can't thank you enough for putting this all together and doing all this hard work. It's so good. And then again, I was asking how people can support. You guys do have stuff on your website for sale that you can't find anywhere else, and it's Canadian focused, which is amazing because that doesn't exist elsewhere. So thank you again for doing that. So everyone, the links down below. All that stuff. I've got some good ideas, so maybe I can talk to Nathan about those another time. Some other maps people want to see when maybe in a few years when you guys get a chance to breathe, maybe we'll see.
yeah.
So thanks for coming on. I'm just going to do a quick sign off, and then we'll come back. I'll come back on, and we'll say goodbye together. Okay. So thanks everyone for watching, and for Nathan coming on board. It's great to finally have Project 44 have some representation at OTD, because I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and I think Dieppe's a good place to do it. So again, like I said, support them, and when you can, check out the website, all the different maps, and not just because I worked on some of them. They're all kinds of other ones. They're all great. It's just mind blowing, the data points and everything that comes together. And I use it all the time, and it still blows my mind. I use it all for different formats and things like that. So it's great to have. So thanks again for watching. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. It helps me out a lot, as does liking and commenting. And stay tuned for some more details. Going to be looking at some different stuff moving forward next week. So just stay tuned for some details about that. I'm still nailing down the final stuff, so it'll be something a little different again. We kind of keep changing it up almost every time we do a live stream. So stay tuned for that as I figure those out. And you can also support the channel through Patreon if you so wish, or become a YouTube team member, which is also very helpful for me to use the funds raised for that to keep things going and get things like a new camera. Hopefully I can get some better internet soon, which has been a big problem for me lately. So I need to fix that. But other than that, so if you can support the channel and the work I do, please do. So thanks again, Nathan, for coming on. I really appreciate you coming on, give us some insights on your work and talking about it and all the stuff that's coming up. So everyone, thanks for watching. And like I said, keep an eye out and go right to Project 44 right now and play with the map. And you can while you're also listening to World War II TV, which I believe is starting right now. So go do both of those things. All right. I'll see everybody next time. Have a good day.
Thanks for having me, Brad. Bye for now.
Yeah, no, bye.